Welcome to the 2024 recap webinar, end of year webinar for Foundy. We're going to hang for a few minutes and give some folks some time to join that might be just getting here. My name's Taylor. I'm the Director of Revenue here at Foundy. I'll let the other two folks introduce themselves. We'll hand it over to Jesse.
Yeah, my name is Jesse. I'm the digital advertising strategist here at Foundy.
And my name's Brandy, and I am the industry relations manager here with Foundy.
Yep. But thanks everybody for spending a little bit of time toward the end of the year to join us here. We're going to give it a few more minutes to let a few more folks roll in, and then we'll get started. So for some of you that may or may not have received the email, we're also we'll send another one out, but we do have and maybe Brandy, if you can pull a link, you can drop it in the chat. But just a customer survey basically gives us a little feedback at the end of the year. It should take only a few minutes, but as we're prepping, which we'll talk a little bit about later in the webinar about for some of the 2025 rollouts in terms of products and features and platform updates, we'd obviously love to take into consideration any of the features that you might like to see or tools that you've been using and things that might be helpful in your marketing endeavors. Yeah, today, as you may have seen in the email, we're going to go through just a few different things in terms of things that we worked on throughout 2024. Let me get to that screen. And then here we go. Here's the overview. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about marketing trends, what we've seen, what we've heard from clients, some of the things that we're reading across the industry as well. Talk a little bit about product innovations in terms of what we rolled out this year for folks that may not be familiar, as well as looking ahead to 2025 and not only some of the products that we might be working on or features that we're working on, but really tying all of this stuff into how it can add or work within your overall marketing mix and hopefully provide a little bit of value along the way. So to get started with, talking about market and trends, we've kind of separated these into a couple of different talking points here. But, I know some of you on here work at more of the label and release side. I know Glenn and Howie both are a little bit more on the live side. And some of this, I think, can be relevant on both sides of the industry. So if you have questions to dive into, let us know in terms of like specifics. But in terms of promoting, whether it's music, live shows or release strategies, really anything, one of the standards that we continue to see is that video, so short form video remains a big player in the industry. But what we're also hearing is that a lot of people are actually watching these videos with the sound off. So whether you're marketing a show or whether you're marketing a release, thinking about content that could incorporate little poster scripts with copy or captions to the audio or the voiceover that might be happening could be beneficial in terms of ways to further engage fans that might not have that sound on. In terms of kind of moving down, reducing friction in the fan funnel, when we talk about market, how are people reacting in terms of consumer behaviors? That's really what we're kind of queuing in on here. And obviously we talk a little bit about the short form video, but in terms of moving into once they actually click on an ad or engage with your banner, if you're doing an ad, what are they doing once they take that action? So if you're driving them to a landing page, what type of friction may come up in the process to get them to the end goal of where you're trying to send traffic? So if it's a music release strategy, you're sending them to a music page that has your different streaming platforms, having those well organized, having the most popular ones at the top. If you're selling tickets, it's like, how do you get them to the point of buying a ticket, or at least if it's a festival versus a show, how do you get them to the point of learning more about that event without a lot of clicks in the process? And we'll talk a little bit about some specific use cases of ways that you could use some of the Foundy tools here in a moment in terms of reducing that friction in the marketing process. I think it might feel like beating a dead horse here, but authenticity is something that I've heard people talk about in terms of content strategies for years now, but that continues to be what people are looking for. I was reading Matter Now, which is just a marketing publication, and they were saying that out of a recent survey, what is most important to consumers when learning about a brand or product, whether it's on social media or anywhere, and to them, it's really that authenticity. So that is a little bit easier to do as an artist promoting something directly. Obviously, for our promoters out there that are maybe selling events, I think one way you could approach the authenticity is how do you build your brand and market your brand as that independent venue or that festival to be community centric and kind of sell yourself as a venue or as an organization and do that authentically. Um, so a little bit different kind of approaches there if you're an artist or an artist team trying to get the artist to talk or speak specifically to whatever it is you're promoting versus a venue. And then have fun and be relatable. I think as a consumer myself, I want to engage in content and buy and support organizations and artists that I relate to and relate with. So I think and bringing that personality into your marketing strategy is obviously pretty important. Jumping over to trends, I'm going to pitch some of this over to Jesse to have him talk a little bit about what he's seen in terms of AI and automation and advertising. A lot of the tools, which we'll also show you here in a moment, can help capture first party data for your marketing strategies. But Jesse can speak also about how we've seen that data that you capture from a first party perspective, how it can work into an ad strategy. So yeah, kick it over to you, Jesse.
Absolutely. So, I actually, previous to found.ee, came more from a label distribution perspective, and I worked with a lot of different ad platforms. But one thing that struck me pretty immediately about found.ee was the ability and how easy it was to collect that first party data and then immediately leverage that. So the ability to implement pixels and, having that unique pixel from found.ee to be able to collect that audience data to immediately leverage that in advertising, I think is an extremely powerful tool. But especially as the advertising landscape continues to get more and more saturated, the importance of first party data is only growing, because there's never going to be a better data segment or audience segment than the one that you own for your own fan base. So I think that the ability to grow that on found.ee and leverage it is really powerful. I think, in terms of AI and automation, obviously that's a huge conversation. We could have a totally different webinar dedicated just to that. But I think, in terms of the recommendation algorithms on, social media channels, websites, things like that, that's something that, we can help tap into as well to make sure that we're connecting you with the right users, the right audiences for your artist, your show, your brand, or otherwise. I think that in terms of the overall landscape and where we interact with it, I do think that more brands are interacting and utilizing programmatic advertising. So whether you're talking about web and mobile display, connected TV is really at a point where it's exploding right now. You're thinking about Hulu or Netflix or Disney Plus. A lot of people are cutting the cord from their traditional cable networks and using the over-the-top services such as those or the internet cable equivalents, all of which have ad placements. So I think that a lot more advertisers are utilizing programmatic, and we can absolutely help you do that.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to the kind of conversation around the advertising landscape specifically, I'm sure many or all of you have probably heard over the last year or so, the deprecation of cookies in terms of tracking and targeting and building up audiences. And while I know Google shifted the course a little bit over the summer and pulled back that they weren't going to fully deprecate those third-party cookies as they had initially proposed, but I think now is a more important time than ever to really lean into that first party data strategy. And if you're a venue, you get a lot of that data in the sense of capturing emails from ticket purchasers. If you're on the artist team side, management or labels, of course you're capturing data in terms of emails from merchandise purchases. But we can, and many of you use our either link in bio or music pages, you can put an email capture subscribe option there. So really think about ways to leverage or really grow your first party data, I think is important. But then also talk to us about how we can help you leverage that data once you have it. So, and as Jesse alluded to with pixels, we can help implement the found.ee pixel that's tied to your account or your artist accounts on those artist or venue websites, which help you get data as people come into that site. And then we can build audiences off of that as well. And I think the main thing to point, obviously we speak a lot strictly in terms of focusing on found.ee tools, but to remind you that anything we're speaking to is really working in conjunction with those wider social media strategies. If you do any traditional media, if you're going direct to DSPs, we can kind of supplement in terms of ways to use and leverage the data that you're capturing from the Foundy pages and the Foundy pixel to support that wider strategy. So if you ever have opportunities or want to lean in more, let us know, reach out, and we'll be happy to chat a little bit more about that. Now I want to actually pivot into examples. So when we talk a little bit about, I'm going to show you a few page examples here and specific to the Foundy tools. So when we talk about a way to reduce friction, the Sarah Giroux example. So this is a Foundy landing page, and this is going to apply mainly to folks that are kind of marketing music here. But if you're a venue and you're selling merch, you could consider this as well. So this would be a music page. Of course, you see all the different DSPs and retailers here. But at the bottom of this page, we have this embeddable widget section, which you could embed a Shopify widget here. And what's cool about this is that, you're marketing your music or an artist's music. So they come to this page, and yes, maybe they want to click on one of these places to buy or stream. But now they also have the ability to check out merch, a full catalog of merch right here on this landing page. And what's great about this is that if I go to add something to my cart, that whole purchase funnel really initiates right here. So you don't have to wait on another page to load. You can see this whole process is happening here. I think I just emptied that cart, but we'll see here. And maybe there might be something wrong because this is the Shopify side with her catalog. Here we go. So yeah, then you just click checkout, and the whole process again, it's a way to kind of streamline everything and have it in one place. So if you're a venue or a festival promoter out there, maybe you use our pages as more of a link in bio that talks about different ways to utilize the venue space. If you want to rent a room out, you could have a button for that. You could have some different kind of call to actions here. But if you're selling merch and you're using any type of online e-com platform, you could also look at an embed code, work that into a link in bio page as well. Now jumping back over to another example here. So this is again artist centric, but this Ziggy Albert's tour page. This is just a different version of a page where they've essentially created it to promote live shows and promote upcoming tour calendar. I thought that he had an actual subscribe button in here in terms of dropping an email in, but they do not. So I won't be able to show you that one. And then this is an example for any of the label folks out there or management teams. But so we rolled out a new feature, which we'll talk a little bit more about in terms of ways to set it up here in a moment. But it's just a lifetime pre-save across Apple and Spotify. So this was just my example, but essentially instead of it being a specific release page, you could just promote, more of like a sign up to subscribe or follow on these two kind of major streaming platforms. If they're Apple users, they can follow you. And what this would do is if I do have a future release coming, but I haven't announced it yet, somebody follows me as like a lifetime follower. The next time I go to release music, they won't have to pre-save. It'll automatically drop that release into their catalog once it goes live. You can implement this feature, which we'll show you a little bit here in a few in terms of how to set it up on the other end, on the back end. But this could also be applied to an existing pre-save launch page as well. Okay, let's jump back into the webinar. Now, again, I'm going to pivot this one for advertising folks on the call. I'm going to let Jesse speak a little bit too, but these are a few different examples of the ways that you could utilize some of and what we've seen this year, really, the way that some of our clients have utilized the platform in terms of advertising. And so Jesse just wanted to take a moment to speak to some of these examples and share a little bit more.
Absolutely. So as we're talking about kind of programmatic advertising in the web mobile display landscape, one of the most popular use cases, and in some ways probably one of the most effective use cases for that, is within our premium domain targeting. So, for whatever industry that you're in, but, looking at the entertainment industry, we have so many different custom preset built lists already available in Foundy accounts, segmented by genre or subject matter. And you can also create your own totally custom list of premium domains. So in these two use cases, the first graphic you see, the Emmy nominee, it was a Emmy focused campaign targeting a very tight, concentrated list of entertainment industry focused domains. And it was a relatively large budget, but it was split up over a little bit longer period of time. We were seeing average CPMs in around the $4 range, but those placements were across websites like Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Billboard, and Polestar. So ultra premium entertainment industry domains for a pretty inexpensive CPM. And a very similar story for our friends over, working with Nathaniel Rateliff for his For Your Consideration Grammy campaign. And in that campaign, they utilized a similar list of premium domains, but also incorporated custom interest targeting. So we've worked with dozens of data partners to put together custom audience segments of music industry focused users, people who are specifically working in the recording industry that are most likely to be Grammy voters. So the combination of those two audiences brought that CPM down to around a $3 average, with still great premium placements across Revolver, LA Times, American Songwriter, Spin, Relics, and more. So two great use cases for generating really premium domain placements, but also hitting some really premium audience segments.
Cool. Yeah, moving a little bit further. This was also a release campaign example, but this was a little bit different strategy that I'll again kind of let Jesse go into a little bit more. But this is more of an independent artist. I think she's based out of Quebec, and we don't work with them directly, but we work with an agency that help promote music across a lot of places. But this was a cool campaign because I thought they did a great job of utilizing kind of a multi-tiered approach that I'll let Jesse speak to.
Yeah, I thought that this was particularly cool, especially how, with a smaller budget, they were able to scale those results incredibly well. So they did run an interest targeting campaign focused on music fans in Canada. It was a pretty broad segment of audiences that they were targeting. But they got great results. They had CPMs in the $1 range for a very small overall budget. So another thing that I love about this ad platform is how it can scale across so many different levels of budgets. There is no minimum spend, and then they did separately run a premium domain campaign in that same territory where they were targeting a selection of music industry domains, entertainment industry domains, and also some more local Canadian French language domains. Those CPMs were a little bit higher in the $5 range, but those premium domain placements were really effective, and again for a pretty small overall budget. So it's always fascinating to me to see advertisers using our platform in different ways, and I love the graphics too. So
Yeah. What I really loved about this is that as more of an independent artist, that I'm assuming maybe they don't have like a massive worldwide fan base yet, but they were focusing specifically on like Quebec, which is probably, I assume, I don't know if that's where the artist is from specifically, but it's taking more of that geo focused approach. And this goes for obviously for live shows, as well. You have the ability to get down to a specific market, specific media market, or specific city limits. But then on the release side, you to the Grammy examples that you use and the Emmy examples, you can go all across the U.S. or international targeting if you want when it makes sense. So a lot of ways to really reach your audience where they are, in addition to obviously whatever you might be doing across other social media channels, et cetera. And then, I think actually the final one we were going to talk a little bit about is more the use case in term of live shows, live events, festivals, tours. And Jesse, I'll let you speak because you were doing the research on these campaigns as well.
Yeah, so we've been expanding a lot into the live events, whether music focused or even not, and it's been really fun to work with some of these partners who are putting on these great festivals, these great shows. For some of these partners, we've arranged multi-step and multi-format types of ad strategies. So for instance, maybe they started out with a web and mobile display prospecting campaign, hitting some premium domains, some interest targeting, maybe a mix of both. But at the same time, maybe they also did a CTV campaign to do more brand awareness building to a different segment of users, or a streaming audio campaign to hit a different segment of users to build that broad awareness on that format. But then afterwards, we would be able to follow up with a follow-on remarketing display campaign to retarget all those users that we reached, not just during this through display, but through those other formats as well. So we've been able to see great results driving those users down that marketing funnel towards consideration, towards conversion. And we've even made a lot of great strides this year in being able to track those conversions. Even, and Taylor, you might want to speak to this a little bit more, but even having our own custom pixel approved by Ticketmaster to track purchases specifically, from tickets sold on that platform. So it's been really exciting to see some of these results, and our conversion tracking, we've made some huge strides and seeing some great results overall.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit, I mean, this isn't specific to the live show kind of marketing or festival marketing approach, but it's in general what the industry is talking about when we look at the kind of shift away from cookies. Another thing that's coming along with that is that we're seeing, um, I I almost call it like a more traditional approach to measurement of digital media and digital marketing. And the reason being is because many places you used to kind of be able to rely a little bit more on last click attribution. So somebody sees the ad, they click the button, they go buy the product or they buy the ticket or they buy the merch, right? But nowadays, because there's so much content coming at us as consumers in any given moment, really, but across so many different digital media platforms and uh, you know in other places too, in terms of if you're watching TV or driving down the street. So, I think instead of measuring or approaching it with an expectation of like one-to-one direct conversion, take approach that is multi or omni-channel and utilize the resources that not only Foundy has, but your social media pages have and ad accounts have. And then, what we've tried to do in terms of advertising is streamline the process to be able to help you as an advertiser reach people across all these other areas but also make that kind of efficient process and easy process to do at a self-serve level. But as many of you know, we're also here to support, and Jesse helps a lot of our advertisers on a regular basis with audience strategy and that kind of cross-device targeting and building out more custom campaigns. So yeah, these were some great examples. It's always, to your point, Jesse, it's really fun to see the way that folks use the platform, but also to see some of these cool events that get promoted through various places. So as we, in talking about advertising and audience, I think, this is also a natural segue into some of our product innovations. And I guess before I do that, let me, drop this. I can't see anybody in the chat, but if anybody out there has questions or wants to talk about advertising concepts or strategies, like drop us something in the chat and we'll come back to it a little bit later. But as we transition into, what we did in 2024, many of you are probably familiar with these things, but we just thought it'd be a good opportunity to highlight a few of these and maybe also showcase, the lifetime pre-save specifically, because that's been something that a lot of labels and artist teams have been interested in. But to start with, talking about some of the advertising offerings that we rolled out in 2024, I will pivot this back to Jesse as well to go in a little bit more. But if you've used our platform, you've probably seen some of these things, but we're excited about the way that we're further developing them and really the way that we're able to reach people more of a where they are kind of opportunity, I guess, if you will. And so all three of these new offerings, I think, are a really neat kind of portion of that. So yeah, I'll let you dive in and talk a little bit about those.
Absolutely. So we've really been expanding our selection of ad formats that been able to offer through the platform, and so kind of starting just as we've listed it here. Digital out of home is a relatively new offering for us. It's just digital billboards. So you think about if you're in a bar, restaurant, doctor's office that has a TV that's playing, maybe an Atmosphere TV, a Loop TV, a Chive TV. Those are also some great ad placements. And so with that, we've recently gained access to new kind of segments of business venues to be able to advertise within those digital billboards. And we are now even able to select individual business venues to be able to advertise in a particular market if you are interested in doing so. Again, this is a lot of broad awareness, great for flooding a market. If you're also running ad campaigns across other formats, great for promoting events on a hyper local basis. So it's a great new ad format for us. Moving on to audio everywhere. So we've had Spotify audio advertising available for quite some time now. But we also have access to a lot of other audio networks for audio advertising. So we just decided to make that available to you all on the self-serve ad platform. And so you can now advertise across networks such as iHeart, Cumulus, Acast. So think internet radio, music streaming, and podcasts all across the internet. In addition to Spotify. So that's been a great way that we've been able to expand into the streaming audio space. In many cases, with these additional networks, we've seen, better, even better CPM results. So you're able to get better reach for your ad budget, in many ways, reach a much broader selection of users. So that's been a very exciting feature for us. And then in terms of CTV, we've been expanding a lot on our inventory that's available in that space. So think again, going back to Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus, think about reaching people in their living room as they're streaming video that way. But Netflix specifically has been something that we just recently gained access to inventory for. And while it's not available on a self-serve basis yet, this is something that we can run on a manual basis with you. Netflix actually offers some great targeting options in terms of content genre, such as even their top 10 placements. So their top 10 movies or shows at any given time, think in terms of genre, think like action or comedy or drama, or even when it comes to age and gender. So targeting those Netflix users. So at this point, we do have a 1K minimum budget for that, and that would need to be arranged on a manual basis. But we're super excited about like an ultra premium CTV offering like that. And we'll go into kind of moving forward, later on in this presentation. But we have a lot of great ideas on how we can expand our CTV offering and how to make that even easier to set up. So a lot more to come there. And Taylor, I don't know if you want to lead the discussion on the lifetime pre-save or.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just quickly add to your points on these different kind of new advertising campaign offerings. The way I look at them is like it's digital out of home, for example, is almost like having a street team, right? You don't have somebody go in and put posters up, and obviously for posters, they're staying up for an indefinite period or till the show plays off. But at the same time, a lot of places won't allow you to hang posters. But if it's a bar or venue that's running, has and it doesn't have to be just bars or venues. I think, Jesse, you may have alluded to it, but inventory wise, we've had access at like universities and we're looking to expand all of that too. Some things that have been requested are like the gas station pumps type ad, which I get often. So yeah, those are some things we'll work on moving forward as well. But yeah, going into lifetime pre-save, this is it was a feature that was rolled out this year. I know this is primarily for our music folks labels and management teams on the webinar, but what this is essentially what I alluded to earlier is in terms of being able to set up a page or add to an existing page your artist, the capability for your fans to follow on Spotify or Apple or opt into a future lifetime pre-save. And so if I show you really quickly what that might look like, let me pull this onto the page. So I'm in my account here under audiences, and we'll talk a little bit about this in the next section in terms of what's to come, but we are going to be making a few changes to a few of the layouts in terms of the audience and fans and dashboard points. But under the My Fans, under audiences, down here, you have the ability to connect your artist or update your artist. In this case, I've already connected my artist on the Spotify and Apple side here to my account. But really what you would do is just come in here, create a page. This lifetime pre-save page is the actual page that you would create to kind of initiate and essentially connect that account. So if you create one of these, you just come in. I think because it's already connected to mine, it's not going to show you the option here. It tells me because I'm already tied in. But in this section is where you would select the artist to connect your account in. It's pretty straightforward, but if anybody on the call has any questions about this or wants to wants to dive in a little bit more, just let us know. We'll be happy to jump on a call directly with you. But it's a pretty cool feature. We're excited about it. It's something that I think helps a lot of artists in terms of really growing their fan base directly on the DSPs, which is something that is, of course, important to a lot of folks. Oh, I exited out of that page, and I was going to show you the other points here. Let me get that back open. So yeah, what'd you say, Jesse?
Yeah, no, the lifetime pre-save is also a great way to build your audience in between release cycles. Because obviously there's a great push that you can put together if you're, going through that release cycle. But sometimes in between, you don't have as many options. So this is a great thing to, throw in as the link in your bio or otherwise to continue growing that audience so people are ready whenever you release something new.
Exactly. Okay, so let me pull this back in. Now, the next point we're going to talk about were the short links and pages. So we've heard from users throughout the last year or two that sometimes it's a little tricky to navigate between these they used to be bunched together. So what we've done is basically essentially separated them. Now, the default view here is going to have your most 30 recent days. So we haven't created anything in this account within that time frame. So we remove that default. And then you'll see here, so a couple of changes to designs here. If you haven't noticed them in your account, there's a few more descriptions or columns here for you to consider or sort by and see. We're still going to continue to evolve this and hopefully make it a little bit more detail oriented, but also easy and efficient for you to use. There's also this grid view or table view is what we're in now, but then there's this grid view, which will show you a snapshot of that artist image or album image. This is our customer service accounts. There's not a ton of great examples here, but you can see the differences here. But then many of you know we have pages, which are those landing pages we talk about, but we also have just trackable short links, kind of like a bit.ly, for example. And so this managed short links would actually be where all of those live. And you can see that here that now it's just a little bit more organized. So separating them, and you also have a kind of a screenshot of wherever that link is if you're looking at the grid view versus the table view. And then I think the other thing that I just pointed out were basically just the insights and analytics page. We just added some detail there. So if you come in and look at your insights on one of these pages, and again, there's not a ton of data here, so you're not going to really have great examples. But it used to be that we showed a little less detail in terms of geo targeting, for example, is where people are coming from. So now, in addition to the country, you can actually get city geo as far as like where people are engaging with those links. So that was just a recent update that I thought might be worth mentioning as well. And then we do also still have the share metrics where you could basically get a public URL that you could share out to another team member so they don't have to be logged into your found.ee account. So those were some of the things. We worked on many other things, but that was just some of the stuff we wanted to highlight. Again, if anybody has any questions or wants to dig into these and see and kind of explore these tools a little bit more with us, just let us know. We have to jump on a call. And now as we move into looking ahead to 2025, we're going to talk a little bit, and we already have really talked a little bit about some of this stuff in terms of like the first party data and where some of the advertising trends that we're seeing going and what we're working on. But in terms of just the platform itself with found.ee, what we're looking to, and this is why we also alluded to the survey that we'd love your feedback and kind of input on, is where do we want to go in 2025? And we've been thinking a lot about that. How do we make these tools as power packed and valuable as possible for you all, but also easy to use and efficient and not too cumbersome. So some of the things we're already working on are a new dashboard view, which will come out in Q1 of next year. It's going to give a little bit more detailed data in terms of account level data, as well as comparison numbers from the past 7 to 14 days. If you're looking at your pages, you'll be able to kind of see what the growth rate and the engagement rate is in different times in a much more what I believe would be streamlined view. And that's what we're really hoping to accomplish. In addition to that, we're going to kind of continue to expand upon that reporting and give you some tools that hopefully give you more insight into what you can do with the data. I think we hear often that there is a lot of data and there's a lot of tools to use, but sometimes it's hard as a music marketer, whether you're on the live side or the venue or the artist side. You're working on so many things at once, and you're moving from project to project, whether that's release at a label or show to show as a venue or event promoter. So we're going to try to roll out some recommendations and ways to use the data that make you hopefully a smarter and powerful marketer. Some of that comes into the first party data. We're going to continue to roll out opportunities and work on tools that make it easier for you to capture that and utilize that data. So if there are ideas or things that you might like to see, feel free to fill out that survey and drop us some hints on there. And then in terms of advertising, and I'm kind of running through this stuff a little bit quickly because I want to be mindful in time and in case anybody has questions or wants to dig into anything. But in terms of 2025, what are we looking to, and how can you expand your advertising? And that's where our programmatic tools could come into play. And what we're hearing from across many industries is that again, omni-channel approach. And I think sometimes as a music industry, we're a little bit slower because we are reactive to so many events or so many releases that it's hard to have a lot of time to strategize and plan. But we're hoping that some of these tools might help make it a little bit easier for you to uh, execute and implement a more wider approach and more omni-channel approach with some of these different things. So yeah, I'll hand it to Jesse too to see if he has any, Jesse or Brandy, if you guys want to add any kind of context to things that you're excited about in terms of what we're working on, because that was all the stuff that I put in here.
Right. In terms of just programmatic advertising in general, I mean, I think that, most of you all are probably, have been, utilizing social media advertising for quite some time. And we really see programmatic as a complement to that, not there to replace your existing marketing strategy or advertising strategy, but as an opportunity to reach users who are, outside of socials, or to even, remarket to them. To be able to, you're doing a social media ad and then you're hitting them across some of their favorite websites or some of their favorite TV shows. And so, I think it's a great opportunity to reach a super broad audience, and to continue getting those really premium domain placements and premium placements across the board.
Yeah, agreed. And because I kind of skimmed over it quickly, like the first party data thing, I know we keep coming back to that. So um, I was reading something this morning on eMarketer, and they were just talking about how even when you're considering the deprecation of cookies and the tracking and not relying on first click attribution, what a lot of businesses were referenced as looking ahead is using the data that they have to better inform their decisions. And so our hope is to be able to provide more actionable data that you have access to within Foundy, that then gives you the capabilities of utilizing it and doing something with it, as opposed to just saying, I have all these data points. How do I do something? So, that's something that I'm really excited about, because I think it is important across the industry in terms of marketing in general. And I feel like, if we're going to be better music marketers, we're going to have to lean into understanding that audience a little bit better, and utilizing that audience in terms of the new tools out there, such as AI, to leverage the data and then use it more to our advantage.
And
Um,
with that, really just, as you're building your first party data audience, even considering using that as a seed for your prospecting audience, creating a lookalike. And so, and as a supplement to some of the audience segments that you may already be targeting, finding users with similar attributes to users who have already demonstrated that they're your fans, is a great and effective way to continue prospecting, in a very narrow and targeted way.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't really get to in detail, and you referenced the ticket rollout of Ticketmaster Pixel. So for any live event marketers, I've had some label and management teams inquire about this too. But really, what that specific example allows you to do is, if you're selling tickets to a show on Ticketmaster, now you can effectively track conversions that are coming from those advertising campaigns. And that's a pretty big deal, because people, everywhere, regardless of what side of the industry you're on, you want to see, and you hope to know that your dollar is doing something to move the needle. Now, it's a little bit of talking out of both sides of your mouth. And for me, I'm saying I am, because I'm also telling you that you don't need to worry so much about that conversion attribution being 1-to-1. I think it doesn't mean you shouldn't consider and shouldn't still use the pixels for the capabilities that they're there for. And when you do see some of that, know that, yeah, it's working, but obviously there are other metrics that are important in that measurement as well. And we've built, in addition to the Ticketmaster pixel, our universal pixel that you can place across your website and on your Shopify pages. We've really kind of enhance that to be prepared for the shifting of the industry. And obviously those things will continue to shift, but we've developed what is called essentially a fingerprinting technology that helps tracking those conversions, but it gives you many more. It gives the not really you as a actionable thing, but in terms of feeding the system to be able to learn off of those different attributes of where people were making touch points within the buying funnel, whether it's 7 days or 10 days down the line, and then being able to retarget them based on certain actions. So we're trying again to continue to develop tools that'll hopefully some of the stuff you don't have to worry about understanding exactly how it works, but it'll hopefully make you a better and easier, smarter marketer along the way. So yeah, those are things that we're excited about. um, I think, Brandy, unless you have anything you want to add, because you've been integral in helping us, flesh out what you hear from clients and customers as well. Any thoughts from you before we move on to questions?
I think you guys covered everything really well. Just to make a point about the first party data, it is something that is so valuable. And it's something that we see across the board, for a lot of clients and a lot of users. Everybody wants to be able to access that data and be able to use it at their advantage. So I'm also looking forward to 2025 and what we have in store.
Yes, yes, we all are. Well, thank you both, obviously, for joining me on this, and thanks to everybody out there. And let's open it up if there are any questions. I haven't been able to see the chat along the way, so I don't know if anybody's dropped anything in. Sometimes we have more active and engaged audiences than others. So, do we have any questions out there?
Nothing so far, but yeah, if you guys have any questions at the moment that you'd like to drop in just to give us a couple minutes to go through, I'm more than welcome.
Yeah, and no worries if not. I think the main point here also being is that if know that at any time you can reach out to us, and we're here to help strategize and maybe provide a little extra insight or extra strategy. We've really prided ourselves this year, particularly on trying to be a little bit more customer centric and being able to help and provide additional, almost be an extension of your team. So we do have limited bandwidth, but we're working on ways that we can provide more value. So if you want to reach out, know that we're here to help. And yeah, if there aren't any questions, then I think we'll just kind of conclude the webinar. And thanks everybody for joining us here today. We can't wait to further continue supporting you in 2024. Do we have one, Brandy?
We do, yeah. Howie just wrote in. He said he's got a question that he believes he might have brought up before. Go ahead, Howie. What's the question you got?
So to go ahead and frame a little context, because I do know Howie, and an event promoter, marketer. Um, he does shows in New York City and in New Orleans here, as he's kind of mentioning. I think I know where he might be trying to go with this, but um, how best to geo target. So in a situation like that, if you're promoting a series of events in a major metropolitan market, um, it's challenging because it's hard to know specifically where people might be willing to drive in or fly in from out of market. Now, I know with Howie, the New York City events are typically around, I believe, around New Year's Eve, or the New Year's, kind of between Christmas and New Year's holidays. So he knows a lot of people are coming into the city for shows at Madison Square Garden. He's promoting kind of post party shows that are similar in genre, that might appeal to the same audience that's there. And so in terms of geo targeting, obviously you're gonna want to target fans locally to New York. But in this case, yeah, he's specifically talking about Fish fans, because he's kind of playing off of the Fish run of shows at Madison Square Garden. So one thing I would say that I would consider is trying to look at past customer data in terms of people that maybe have bought tickets, if you have access to that. Main
Yeah.
things, thinking geo, where are they coming from? New York City, a lot of people are traveling in from probably all over the world, let alone the country, and it's hard to be everywhere all the time. So maybe try to narrow down and figure out if you can think of or see from your past data, purchaser data, are they mostly coming from Denver, San Francisco, and Nashville, or are they, is it five specific states? Maybe. I think if it were me, I would probably focus on a handful of major metropolitan markets that would likely have that kind of fan base, and know that they have an easy route in terms of flights to get to New York City, because that might be where the best kind of bang for your buck could go. Now, the thing to consider with that is like we probably need to get those ads running now, Howie, since people were planning that trip, for New Year's Eve a little bit in advance. And sometimes it's hard. I mean, you can certainly try to flood the market the week of, as you know, people are in town. I mean, the digital out of home could be an example of that. Is if we narrowed in, we'd have to work with you a little bit more manually to try to target specific venues. But if we know that you're booking a show in XYZ bar, that is on this, on 34th Street in New York, 34th Ave. I don't remember how they work up there, but you could, we could come up with a very geo-specific kind of target for the week of as well. It's hard to know what type of a move that might actually have on the needle, but the best thing I would say is, yeah, trying to rely on past customer or purchaser data that might be able to impact that decision. Otherwise, you yeah, educated guess is probably about the best you can do. Yeah, it is expensive. And it's you wonder how many people you lose. Well, I mean, unfortunately, I think that's kind of the case with marketing is like if we knew how to do it 100% right, we'd all be rich because we'd market everything perfectly, right? Um, but a lot of it just comes from consistency and Howie, I think in your example, like how do we think about some of those major markets, especially if you're going to do it every year? How do we have a strategy that you almost replicate to build the brand of that up, right? So, and maybe you have to set aside a little more budget for the next couple of years to build that up so that people know kind of moving forward that carries a little bit more name recognition. But happy to strategize with you and try to figure out how we can help. Um, but yeah, thanks for the question. I don't know if I have a perfect answer for you, but hopefully. And Jesse, obviously you're involved in that stuff is more than I am. So feel free to add some context.
No, I think that sounds great. I think, for one-off shows, I definitely recommend at least targeting that DMA. But it sounds like these events have a lot larger draw that people are planning for a little bit further in advance. So, I think going towards the markets that perform well already, that people are willing to travel is definitely a great option. But you can also A/B test things. You're targeting one audience and one geo, and comparing those results against another ad that you're running with everything else identical in terms of the setup, but testing a different geo and see how people are responding there. So.
Yeah, it is tough because, it's such a broad, markets are big and there's so many people are into so many different things. So it's hard to know that Denver would be the perfect market, but you might have more probability there than you would on the on the Charlotte market or something, for example. So um yeah, and in addition to that, Howie, like the A/B testing, like think about that across multiple platforms. So, if you're running social ads, do the A/B testing, but then also maybe A/B test on a display banner campaign because you might have it'd be interesting to see the correlation or differences in that too. Um, but thanks for the question. If we don't have any other questions, I think we'll call it a day. And thanks again, everybody, for just being a supporter and user of Foundy, helping us help you, hopefully, as marketers. And thank you for being here today. We hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. And cheers to marketing in 2025. Let us know how we can help you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.